Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the J Lounge. Of course, you guys know I'm your hostess with the mostest, Miss J, aka Miss Simone Jackson, here to bring you guys another wonderful episode of the J Lounge. Of course, everyone knows out there the J Lounge is a celebrity-based podcast show where we talk with actors, directors, singers, you name it, they all come down here and they all have a great time. As always, I'm very excited to be introducing my next guest to you guys. She's an actress, a speaker, a global advocate, and she's the executive producer of Plan C, which just had its big premiere at the Sundance Film Festival. It's really exciting. I cannot wait for her to talk about it. Please, everyone, give a warm welcome to Jess Jacobs. Hi, Jess.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. I so appreciate it. So, yes, I am super excited to have you on here. I know my audience is super excited as well. Um, I'm gonna go ahead and get this started for us. I'd like
Amazing.
to know, Jess, what began your passion for producing films?
So, it's so funny like in this industry, it's always like such a kind of winding path. For me, I started of course as an actor, and I think what really it was 2016, I think. And I just was like looking at the world kind of around us. That was like during the sort of like rise of Hillary Clinton, and also, the Donald Trump era, and
Yeah.
really was was kind of like, okay, I am auditioning and reading all these scripts that center the stories of women. But often at that point, and I think it's changed a lot now, which I'm so grateful for, but at that point, it often felt like I was auditioning over and over for Alice and Alice in Wonderland, where you're like, okay, she's the titular character, like she's technically the lead, but she's kind of like at effect of the world around her. She's sort of like not an agent of her own experience and her own destiny. And I had a really just strong feeling that that didn't align with the kind of art that I wanted to make, the kind of stories that I wanted to tell. And so I went to my team at that point and just sort of said to them, I want to learn what it means to create my own content, to again to like to be the mistress of my own creative destiny. And so I started shadowing some producers from there, and ended up, launching a production company for a couple of years, which we've recently closed the doors on after an incredible chapter. And it's been this amazing opportunity to learn how to put my weight and my voice, and in some cases like my talent, behind projects which move the needle and tell stories that are really pushing us forward in terms of representation
Yes.
of
Mhm.
people on screen and off screen. So it started from sort of dissatisfaction with some of the stories that were being told on the big and the small screen, and I think we've made so many leaps since then, which is, I mean, the greatest thing.
Yes, I think we've made a lot of leaps as well, for sure. And then that is a pivotal time, back in
Oh yeah.
2016. Yeah, yeah. I remember I was too. It's a very,
Hmm.
it definitely is going to go down in history for sure. I mean, how can it not?
Yep.
But it definitely set off, I think, an intensity of making sure that these stories were told, and that these stories get told, and that we get better representation and all that kind of stuff, because at that time it was just a heightened of it, back in
Yes.
2016. So now
Yeah.
it's definitely paved the way for the stories we get to see and hear now, for sure. But oh yeah, that was
Oh
very
yeah.
intense time. But
I
yes,
know.
yeah,
I
yeah,
I feel
okay.
like everybody's stories are like pre 2016 and post 2016, like everybody's life. Yeah, it was such a transformative period too. I think like there's so much that was kind of like unspoken and under the rug, and so many people like experienced oppression or sort of like obstacles to getting what they wanted, and were like, it was hard to put your finger on, like hard exactly to name what and why that was. And then this like man kind of comes into the public sphere in this way, and like all of a sudden we all have this, first of all, like the language to articulate, I think, what we've been struggling to put words to. And then, and also like a call to action to
Yes.
say, if we want this to get better, like it's going to take all of us.
Yes, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I honestly could not agree more. All right, going on to the next question, Jess. Name three people who influenced your career.
Oh, I like this question. And also, one of the most wonderful things about being a creative is that every encounter has the possibility of influencing you, from like the person you buy coffee from in the morning to like an Uber driver you have a cool conversation with to like, you know, a new friend. Open to it, sort of all of the world around you can
Mm-hmm.
influence you. But I think the three people who are coming to mind right now, one of them is somebody that I started working with when I was a teenager. So when I first sort of started working professionally as an actor when I was 15, I started to work with this coach who has since become like a life coach and then really just a dear friend. His name is Walker Clark. And uh, what he offered me was a way to look at the world which didn't put me second, which really like asked me to like dream as big as I possibly could and fulfill those dreams through like, you know, commitment and hard work, and, you know, taught me the power of like visualization and you know, laws of attraction and all of that stuff, to the extent that like your listeners believe that or not, there is such power in like really strong like manifestive kind of qualities. And so he was one of the people that really brought me that.
Mm-hmm.
um I also am endlessly inspired and influenced by my partner, who is an incredible musician, Brian Keller. He and I think like he's, as a musician, and for me as a writer and a performer and a producer, we have very different ways of looking at the world and looking at art and looking at creation, and have found such a complementary way of sort of like living together, and in some cases now working together, which is so joyful and so exciting. And then the third is such a funny one, but she popped into my mind. I spent a year at the Stella Adler School of Acting in New York City. And one of my teachers actually recently passed away. Her
Oh,
name is Betsy Parrish. She was absolutely beloved. She studied under Stella herself. And after your first year of acting school, you know, you go into the room for an evaluation of sorts. And so you go and you talk to all of your teachers. And so I walked into the room for her, and she asked me what I thought I learned this year. And I said to her, you know, I thought for a couple of seconds and sort of looked up and into her eyes and said, you know, Betsy, I think in your class, which by the way was a character class, so like we were, you know, going to the zoo and like finding animals that we should like do our monologues as, and I'm pretty sure I picked a sloth or something silly. And we were, you know, doing monologues as like vegetables. Like it just was a very silly and joyful and exploratory class. And, you know, so I said to her, Betsy, I think the thing that I learned the most in your class is how to fail. um you know, really kind of like fall on my face, do something silly and stupid, and figure out how to pick myself back up. And she looked at me and sort of squinted her eyes a little bit, and she said, you know, Jess, for you, I don't think you need to learn how to fail. I think you need to learn how to let yourself succeed. And it was such a powerful moment for me, because I think I had spent so much of my like young professional life being like, oh, humility is everything, and like, you know, you need to be able to like really, again, like fall on your face, and like, and that's sort of what's going to allow you at some point to, you know, to rise up. And I think what I took from that statement from her and her advice was, you actually also need to, like, sometimes success is scarier than failure.
it is.
Sometimes actually getting what you want can be the scary thing. And she illuminated that for me, and I think really set me up to be a fighter for the kind of career that I want and the kind of life that I want. It was such a profound moment for me as an 18-year-old,
Yeah.
brand new to New York City.
Oh, that is so powerful. That is very, very powerful.
Yeah, she was
That's
incredible.
amazing though. It's incredible that, these, teachers are, they're able to inspire you even,
Mm-hmm.
even years on. I mean, that's impact that they have years on,
Yes.
still talking about them to this day. And I think that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And shout out to them, all of them. Seriously.
Yes. All of the teachers. Yes. Teachers are
Yes.
incredible. Oh, they're
Yes.
the best. Yeah.
All right, going on to the next question. As I said earlier during the introduction, you are the executive producer of Plan C, and it
Yay.
premiered at the Sundance Film Festival, which I'm speaking to existence. I will be there one day.
Yes, you will.
I'm just speaking to existence.
Exactly. We're
Can you?
manifesting out here.
Yes, we're manifesting. That's all we do here. We manifest. We work hard and manifest.
Yes.
That's exactly what we do here.
Yes.
Can you tell my Jane Lounge audience what the film is about and how was it like premiering it at the Sundance?
Yes, absolutely. This film is it's such a beautiful, striking portrait. So the film itself is a documentary which follows an intrepid group of abortion providers, activists, and patients who are seeking to increase access to medication abortion, which is two pills, mifepristone and misoprostol, which can be used very, very safely for self-managed abortion. So looking in the face of the pandemic, with the rise of telemedicine, um, and then in the wake of the fall of Roe versus Wade. So
Right.
in the aftermath of that, and so the filmmaker behind the film, Tracy Drose Tragos, is an absolute master. She's such a genius. She made a film on a similar topic with HBO in 2016 called Abortion Stories Women Tell. And so she had been in like sort of embedded in this community of abortion providers and activists for some time. And she started to realize when Brett Kavanaugh was appointed to the Supreme Court that Roe versus Wade was on shaky ground.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so she started filming then. I actually, in a sort of funny turn of events, I had an abortion when I was 19. I talk about it all the time and very openly. I think it's part of the destigmatization process and it's really important to me. I had been a spokesperson and collaborated with the organization that Tracy was following, also called Plan C. So I had worked with Plan C, the organization, on a PSA campaign that they did in 20, I think it has to have been like 2015. It was the Five Little Pills campaign. It was an information campaign about these two pills, misoprostol and mifepristone. I had my abortion via this medication. Was super safe, super. It was a an intense experience and one that I'm so grateful to have had the choice to make. So I had worked with them on that, and when Tracy started to follow them in like 2018, 2019, one of the co-founders reached out to me and said, do you know Tracy? She's this documentarian. She's following us. I knew Tracy's work. And so she and I got on the phone and started talking, and it was just such an organic kind of fit and match. The activism that I had been doing, and then having, sort of the narrative and sort of storytelling work on the professional side of my career, it was kind of this incredible just kismet moment. So I think one of the things that I was really struck by for this film is the ways in which she follows people that are doing the incredible and kind of like tip of the spear work around access during these really tumultuous times. I feel like it can be tempting to tell the stories of, folks of the anti-abortion movement, like trying to sort of understand where they're coming from and, all of that. And for me, was it really was refreshing and exciting to tell a story of people in this movement who are working in a way that engenders hope in the audience. Like, it can feel so scary out in the world right now, especially for people who have the ability to get pregnant. There are so many barriers. There is so much judgment. and to tell a story that is hopeful, that is joyful, in so many cases, like hilariously funny. The audience at the premiere at Sundance like laughed out loud. I mean, multiple times. There's just such joy in this community. And I think that Tracy captured both the sort of risks and the dangers of doing this kind of work in this climate, and also the joy of all of these providers and activists together, and the joy of being able to access care when you need it the most.
Oh, that sounds like an amazing and powerful film. Thank you for sharing your own personal story. I think
Definitely.
that's, I do. I love it when, women especially have the courage to do so because, there's so much stigma, there's so much shame,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just unnecessary because every woman's story is different. You cannot lump anybody's
Yes.
story together. You can't assume that it's the same. Every woman's story is different. There's almost what,
Amen.
8, 9 billion people on this planet. None of us are the
Mm-hmm.
same.
None of
So
us are
none
the
of
same.
none of the situations to be treated the same. I mean, there's all unique, all unique attributes to these situations that
Yep.
people need to be conscious
Yes. No,
of.
I think that that's so well said. I mean, 85% of Americans believe that the decision of whether or not to terminate a pregnancy should be between a woman and or a pregnant person and their doctor. And I can't think of anything else that 85% of Americans agree on. It's like we're
You're
in such a
right.
divided moment. Like that's a massive, percentage of people. So it actually is not as controversial a subject as it often is made out to be when we talk, when we share, like when we discuss these things. And I think it's part of the power of the sort of anti-abortion movement that they've uh, created a shameful environment towards silence. So I think the more that we're speaking out, the more that we are actually finding connection with each other and finding that we're, again, like we're all so much more similar than than we give ourselves credit for.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I completely agree. I completely agree. So I highly encourage when Plan C is available worldwide for everyone to see it and
Yes.
to really listen and all of that. It's important.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
very important.
Yeah. We're taking it to South by Southwest. We just announced yesterday. So if you'll be in Austin in March, come through, see the film. We've got some other festivals that we'll be announcing shortly, and then are working towards a distribution deal. So keep your eyes peeled.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Will do. Will do. All right. Coming up with the next question. Where can the J Lounge audience follow you and your work?
Well, this is a very easy answer. I am on Instagram at Jess Jacobs X. Uh, that is where I spend most of my digital time. I'm not a big Facebook girl, and in the time of the Elon Musk Twitter takeover,
Yeah,
it's just been
I'm
it's
so with you
been a
there.
little different. Been a little different. So I would say Instagram is the best place to follow. I have a website as well, www.jessjacobs.com.
All right. I highly, of course, encourage my audience. Make sure you follow Jess Jacobs on Instagram. Check out the work. And of course, make sure you check out Plan C as soon as it becomes available. All right. Going on to the next question. What future projects are you involved with that you can dish about to the J Lounge audience?
We love a dish.
We do.
Um, so unannounced. So I can't tell you too many details. I'll give you like the appetizer. I just recently wrapped production on my screenwriting debut, feature film debut. So we're in post production now, editing that. I collaborated with an incredible director named O'Day Rashid, who was born in Baghdad and now lives in LA. He and I were working on that project for a while. So that will be coming out this year, has really been a labor of love. And then recently announced this incredible television project that I'm developing with a couple of partners. It's based on a book, a novel called The Hush by Sarah Foster. It is this you know, thriller kind of political near future uh, piece that again navigates or deals with unintended pregnancy, the disappearance of pregnant teenage girls in the face of a local epidemic in the UK. It's a beautiful book. Sarah actually, as the author of the novel, has a PhD in mother-daughter on-screen relationships. So she wrote this book as part of her thesis, which is just to me so interesting that the narrative and the story is grounded in research and in the excavation of the ways in which we represent mothers, daughters, and their relationships on screen. So she wrote this book kind of based in that, and then has set it in this like wickedly interesting environment of the near future that, you know, it illuminates where we could potentially go if we don't really all like stand up and kind of link arms and come together to make the world safe for everybody. We are in negotiations and conversations with different partners to bring that to the small screen. So highly recommend staying tuned for that. It's one of the best books that I've read recently, frankly, and it's published. So you can run out to your local bookstore and buy The Hush, give it a read. You will absolutely love it. Again, a story that is dark and twisted and thrilling, and which at the end has this incredibly hopeful message.
I highly encourage my audience, as soon as more information comes out, to see that. That sounds very powerful, very searing, very potent. So definitely yeah, I'm definitely wanting to know more about that for sure. So make sure, Jess, here,
I
post it
definitely
here.
will.
Please. We like to be in the know. We do.
Yes.
Oh,
You'll be the first one on my speed dial.
yes. All right. Just got a couple more questions for you. Going on to the next one. What goals do you hope to continue to accomplish in your career?
Wow. Yeah, I keep making things. I spent so much of I mean, I'm, you know, it's not like I've been doing this for like 50 years or anything, but I spent a lot of my early career being really, really goal oriented, like almost to the point of kind of like gripping on to these goals, being like hyper focused. And that served me in a lot of ways. But I'm at a moment now where I'm moving forward on things that inspire me, working with people that I love to work with. I have a no, I don't know if I can curse on this show. I have a
Of
no
course.
asshole Okay, I have a no asshole policy. We don't let assholes into our sacred space. And so, you know, just getting to work with like amazing people, amazing partners. I have done a little bit of television, but really excited with The Hush and another project that I'm in development on based on my short film Choices, which is available to watch on Omeletto, which is a distribution platform. I'm really excited to play in the TV space. I think long form content is really exciting. It gives you a longer time to get to know characters, to get to delve into story. And I think, you know, a lot of my work has a social awareness or a social impact component, especially around sort of feminist and female experience and feminine experience in the world. And so, you know, I think like getting to live with characters for a longer amount of time and getting to tell these stories over a longer period of time really allows for a multitude of opportunities to expose audiences to new points of view or new ways of thinking, new characters, new storylines, you know, getting to play with the form a little bit. So I guess if I have to be specific, I'll put sort of breaking into the TV space is something that I'm really looking forward to.
Yes, that's always important. I feel like that's always important. We definitely need more, especially executive producers, female executive producers in those TV
Mm-hmm.
spaces, making, helping bring those big stories to life. And you have a lot of
Yes.
stories that you want to bring to the forefront. And I definitely feel like definitely Hollywood should be calling you to get those stories to the forefront. Honestly, I'm just saying.
Thank you. No, I mean, thank you for saying that. I'm going to quote you on it. But no,
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that you make such a good point. Like, it is, of course, about representation on screen, but the way that that representation is its most authentic and it's most progressive and it's most sort of like exciting is also when it's matched with representation behind the camera in positions of like decision making power, whether that's from an executive point of view, from a director, from a writer, a creator, a showrunner, having a diversity of points of view in the decision making room and at the table is, as we all know, I think in 2023, like that's the sauce.
Mm-hmm. Yes. That is the sauce. I like that. I think you should trademark that today.
Okay,
I'm just
TM,
saying.
that's the sauce.
I'm just saying. I like that. I think that's a good one.
I love it.
All right. Going on to the next question. What are some of the most rewarding moments of your career?
uh, I feel like I keep saying this, but it's like so many, little tiny moments that you just kind of get to like step back and say, but I really will say, and I know this is like on theme for this conversation, but standing at the front of the theater on January 23rd, screening film, this film Plan C for audiences in Utah, and standing beside both like incredible contributors to the film, from our amazing editor, Meredith Perry, to our incredible composer, Nathan Halpern, to, of course, to Tracy, like just these incredible collaborators. And then also standing beside abortion providers and midwives and doctors and activists, like people that actually are doing the work on the ground. It was, I don't know, it was a totally transformative moment for me, and kind of such a peak of like the work in the activism space that I've been doing for some time. And then, of course, a career in Hollywood, to have this film screened in this mainstream space with an audience that understands and loves independent cinema. It just kind of brought all of these things that I love so deeply together into one moment. I kind of was standing up there like quietly, tears like rolling down my cheeks, of joy, pinching myself, that we get to do this. Like, this is our job. It's just amazing.
Yeah. No, that's got to be one hell of a feeling, really. One
Yeah.
hell of a feeling. And I like how you had all these, midwives and doctors like that, because you, like you just said, they're the one who's doing the groundwork. They're
Yes.
the ones who see and know each and every single one of their person's story that walks in. They know
Yes.
the situation. And if you ask them, I'm pretty sure they said, well, I've never heard the same story twice.
100%. And there are a couple of, I mean, it's totally right. And there's a couple of abortion storytellers in the film, and they sort of talk through their decision making process and why they need an abortion. And not that anybody has to justify their medical decisions. Like, we don't ever ask cancer patients to justify publicly why they've decided to go through chemotherapy, but for those who are telling their story to destigmatize it, like, it's so evident. Like, every single person is making a decision for a different reason, and for one that's like so clearly part of like the fabric of their entire lives. Like, they see themselves as whole people. Of course, they live full and complete lives, and they know what's best for them. And so, I think, yeah, you're just spot on in sort of recognizing the uniqueness of every individual person's story. And by the way, like, you'll hear stories too. We don't capture this in the film, but like all the time, from providers who, say there are people picketing out, anti-abortion folks picketing outside of our clinics, and then, the next day they're inside the clinic getting an abortion, saying to the provider, my situation is different. Like, I need this because my situation is different. And the next day, after their abortion, they're back out there picketing again. But what they don't understand is that everybody's situation is different.
Exactly. That is absolutely right. Nail on the head. Correct. Every
Yeah.
story and every situation is different, and I don't think it's right or fair for anyone to assume they know anybody's story. There's 9 billion of us, almost 9 billion of us on this planet. You
Yes.
don't know everyone's story, not even half of it. You know the people
Yep.
of your hometown story, but you don't
Yep.
know the whole world's story. Not even
Yeah.
close. Not even
Not
close.
even close. And by the way, I will also tell you, and I have the consent to tell this story, but my mom also had an abortion when she was a teenager, and I didn't know until I told her about mine years after I had it. So, like, sometimes we don't even know the stories of the people closest to
And
us, which
exactly, sometimes you don't.
you don't
You don't.
always know. And so, I think that's where, like, I mean, now we're getting into like soapbox territory, but like, that's where kindness comes in. You know what I mean? Like,
Compassion
everybody
and
is living a life.
understanding.
Exactly. Mwah,
Yes.
chef's kiss.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That's all that comes from. And it really, these past couple of years, it seems like more and less of that is happening. But with, I
Yeah.
feel like, stories and your films like this,
Hmm.
it can definitely, bring it back and start opening that conversation again. And I think
That's
that's
what we're hoping
important.
for.
That's
Yeah,
and
that's
that's
what we're hoping
important.
for.
Oh
Hmm.
my goodness. Jess, honestly, I feel like I found my kindred spirit. I feel like I
Yes.
feel like we feel the exact same thing on a lot of stuff. I feel like we can go on for hours. I
We could do
really
this all
do.
day. Yeah, we could.
Honestly, I need to meet you. I feel like we need to have a coffee day and just
Yes,
tell
let's
our
do it.
stories. I feel like
I
that
know
needs
for
to
all the
happen.
readers, for all the listeners, we are meeting. Like, this is one of Simone and I's first conversations. So
Yes.
we're now best friends, which is amazing.
But yeah, this is the first time. Yeah. But I feel like I just found a total kindred spirit. You know exactly how I feel, and I feel exactly how you feel as well. I've never,
Amazing.
had an abortion, but I sympathize for all the women out there who
Hmm.
experienced it. And, your stories matter, your voices matter. And despite what people say, they are they're really just talking from their own experience. They have not even begun to try to see the other perspective. And
Ashe, amen. Yes.
yeah, and
Hmm.
it's hard because people who are not seeing the other perspective are the ones making decisions and
Yep.
laws. So
True that.
this is why films like this is important to educate, because we
Yes.
need people to see that, maybe you're not as right as you think about the situation when it comes to abortion. It's not for fun or for pleasure as what people would like to assume. There are so many different stories, and when you lump them all in together, you're saying that each individual story doesn't matter, and that's not true. So that's not
Yes.
true at all.
Big, big yes. And by the way, I also have to plug, if anybody listening to this podcast is seeking an abortion, whether you're in a state where it's legal or in a state where it's restricted, you can go to www.plancpills.org and you can find a variety of information that is reliable, that is well researched about abortion pills, about accessing them by mail. Um, and you can take your power and your life into your own hands.
Amen. And I highly encourage that. Absolutely. Absolutely 100%. I'm for keeping abortion safe, secure, and within the business of the doctor
Mm-hmm.
and the person. 100%.
Hell yeah. Hell
All
yeah.
righty. All right. I really enjoyed our conversation today, Jess. Like I said, you are amazing. Definitely gonna need that coffee day one time. So,
Yes, I
but
can't wait.
I, yes, but I do appreciate you telling me your story, both your personal and your business stories as well. And I can't wait to see more of what you do. And I think you're definitely a shining light in these type of stories that need to be told.
Back at you, Simone. Thank you so much for having me on today. It's been such a pleasure. Like the light of my Friday.
Oh, I'm so happy that's what this 5 years ago. So I'm so happy. Mission accomplished.
Mission
Uh,
accomplished. Yeah, we can all go home
yes.
now.
Okay, everyone, of course, I highly encourage you one more time. Make sure you follow Jess Jacobs on Instagram. Follow Jess's stories, give them support, show the work support as well. And again, yes, make sure, as Jess said, um, please go to that website if you need any information. It's here. It's 100% important. So make sure you do so. But I do appreciate everyone listening in today. Of course, I've been your hostess with the mostest, Miss J, aka Miss Simone Jackson. I will be back with another episode here soon. I want to thank everyone for listening in. Have a wonderful day, and I'll be back.